Welcome to the series of lecture on finite element analysis. In this part, we are going to start the vector variable problems by using the two-dimensional element. Before entering to the vector variable problems in two dimension, we will briefly discuss about what are the various mechanical components involved in this engineering analysis, how the stresses are evaluated analytically. When we do the engineering analysis, we will come across these three basic elements based on the load acting on the component. First one is bar. What is a bar? A member which is subjected to axial load. A structural member subjected to axial load is called a bar. We can use the Hooke's law to design this particular member which is subjected to axial load. So stress is proportional to strain, that is stress is equal to Young's modulus multiplied by strain. By using this Hooke's law, we can easily design this type of member which is subjected to axial load. Now next one is beam. What is beam? A beam is a structural member which is subjected to transverse load. That is, load will be acting perpendicular to the axis of the member. For solving or for designing this type of beams, we are using the bending equation. Where bending equation is m by I is equal to sigma b by y equal to E by R. So where m is the bending moment, I is the moment of inertia, sigma is the bending stress, y is the distance from the neuter layer, E Young's modulus or radius of curvature. For any member which is subjected to a transverse load, for designing that type of structural member, we are using this bending equation. Then the third one is shaft. Shaft is a member which is subjected to torque or twisting moment. So in this case, for designing this type of member, we are using the torsion equation, which is T by J is equal to tau by R is equal to C theta by L, where T is the torque or twisting moment applied on the shaft, J polar moment of inertia, tau is the shear stress, R radius of the shaft, C modulus of rigidity, theta is angle of twist, L is the length of the shaft. If a member is subjected to axial load alone, we can use this Hooke's law. If a member is subjected to transverse load alone, we can use bending equation. If a member is subjected to torque alone or pure torque, then we can design that component by using the torsion equation. But in real time applications, if you take many machine components or structural component, we will have combination of this loading, axial load, transverse load and twisting moment. All this load will act simultaneously over the component. In that case, how to design that particular component, that also we studied in our strength of material. Suppose if a component is subjected to a combination of loading, axial load, bending load and twisting moment. So in that case, how to design that particular component? Here I am showing one example. So there is a stepped shaft, one end is fixed and in the other end we are applying a torque using this handle. The axial load is also acting here and the bending load is also acting, and this force will going to produce a twisting moment. So all the three types of load is acting on this particular component. Now this is the support end. If you want to design this particular shaft, then how to do this designing process? For that, the usual practice is we will try to find out the principal stress developed in the material. Based on the principal stress, we will apply the theories of failure to design this particular component. How to determine the principal stress? We know that formula for principal stress: maximum principal stress sigma 1, minimum principal stress sigma 2, then maximum shear stress tau max, like that. Sigma 1 is equal to sigma x plus sigma y divided by 2. This is called the average stress term, and this one is called the radical term, root of sigma x minus sigma y divided by 2 whole square plus tau xy square. Similarly, in the sigma 2 also we have sigma x, sigma y and tau xy. Maximum shear stress is sigma 1 and sigma 2 involved. If you want to evaluate the principal stress sigma 1 and sigma 2, we have to know this sigma x and sigma y. What is this sigma x, sigma y? These are called normal stresses. Normal stresses, and the tau xy is called shear stress. So normally, to define the stress, we are using a reference plane. With respect to that plane only, we can define the stress completely. That is why stress is called a tensor. In case of a component which is subjected to combination of loading like this, then to design that component we need a principal stress to be evaluated. If you want to find the principal stress, first we have to know what are the normal stresses and shear stresses acting on that particular component. So to evaluate that normal stress and shear stress, we can use the analytical method or the finite element method, which is best suitable for this type of complicated problems. In finite element method, we are going to evaluate the first deformation or displacement, that is called a direct solution, because we know that the finite element equation is K stiffness matrix multiplied by U displacement matrix, which is equal to the external force F. So the direct solution obtained from the finite element method is displacement U. From the displacement we are going to calculate the strain, element strain, then we will calculate the stress. Strain and stresses are called derived solution from this finite element method. That is why we are finding it in the post processing stage. How to find this normal stress and shear stresses using finite element method, that is what we are going to see. Before going to that finite element, quickly go through how to determine this normal stress and shear stress in a machine component like this. So for that, the usual practice is we will consider a small elemental, three-dimensional elemental volume, right? So like a cubical volume we will consider from any member. For that cubical member, we are going to apply the concept of normal stress and shear stress. Let us see. This is called a three-dimensional stress element. To understand the normal stress and shear stress, we are going to use this three-dimensional stress element. What is three-dimensional stress element? This is nothing but a small elemental volume taken from the component, machine component, which is subjected to combination of loading. Small cubical volume shown here as a stress element, and we are using the Cartesian coordinate system x, y and z, 3D stress element. If you take this plane, the plane which is perpendicular to the x-axis, this one, this is going to be called as x plane. Similarly, if you take this plane which is perpendicular to the y-axis, then this is called y plane, and this plane which is perpendicular to z-axis, this is called z plane. For defining this stress, we need one reference plane and direction. That is why it is called a tensor. With respect to this plane, let us take this x plane. Now for this plane, the stress, there are two types of stress we are discussing. One is the stress acting perpendicular to the plane, that is called a normal stress, and the stress which is acting tangential to the plane is called as shear stress. Tangential stress or shear stress. In this case, we are using the Cartesian coordinate system x, y, z. With respect to the x plane, there will be only one normal stress perpendicular to this plane, sigma xx. Then there will be two shear stress for the y direction as well as z direction. there will be two components of shear stress. How to denote the normal stress and the shear stress? Now for that we are using two subscripts. The first subscript denotes the plane on which the stress is acting. So here the plane is x plane. Then second subscript denotes the direction on which the stress is passing. Sigma xx denotes a stress is acting on the x plane and along the x direction. Then this xx represents it is a normal stress. So your plane is x plane, direction is also x direction, then it denotes the normal stress. Suppose when you come to this shear stress they are using tau, symbol tau. For normal stress we are using sigma. First subscript x is plane, then y is the direction. So this is acting on the x plane along the y direction. That is why tau xy. Similarly, when you take this one, first one, the shear stress is acting on the x plane along the z direction. That is why tau xz. Like this, we can form three normal stresses in x direction, y direction and z direction. And for each plane, we will get two shear stresses. Now, to simplify the analysis, we are going to assume the magnitude of this tau xy and tau yx will be equal. And similarly, tau yz and tau zy will be equal. Then tau zx and tau xz will be equal. So direction will be different, but the magnitude we can assume is equal. In that way, we can reduce the number of shear stress components from 6 to 3. Now, in a three-dimensional stress element, we will have three normal stress component, sigma xx, sigma yy, sigma zz, and three shear components, tau xy, tau yz, tau zx. In each plane we have one shear stress. Tau xy is x plane, y direction. Similarly, tau yz, y plane, z direction. Tau zx means z plane, x direction. So three shear stress component. Now for solving a real-time engineering problem, we have to evaluate these three-dimensional stresses. That means three normal stress and three shear stresses. But when we solve problems manually, especially in finite element method, we try to simplify the real three-dimensional problem into two-dimensional problem or one-dimensional problem. For bar problem, beam problem, truss problem, we use the one-dimensional element. That is also that concept we can apply for the real-time problems. So we assumed that this problem can be simplified into a one-dimensional problem. Similar way, some more applications are there in which we can simplify the three-dimensional problem into a two-dimensional problem. So that we are going to discuss in this part. Before that, we will try to establish the stress strain relationship for this three-dimensional stress element, right? So to establish this stress strain relationship, we are going to use the definitions available in the strength of material. We know this is the stress strain relationship for one-dimensional problem. Sigma stress is equal to Young's modulus multiplied by epsilon strain, Hooke's law. Now in case of three-dimension problem, we have to consider the Poisson's effect also. So what is the Poisson effect? Suppose if you see in this diagram, when you apply a load along this x direction, because of this load applied on the x direction, component will tend to elongate because it is a tensile nature of load. The component will tend to elongate along this load application direction. At the same time, this is the original size of the component. So when it get elongated in one direction, simultaneously it is contracting in the other two direction. So there is a contraction here in the y direction, here contraction in the z direction. These deformation in the transverse direction, the transverse with respect to load acting direction. When you measure this strain, that is deformation in the transverse direction divided by the original length will give you lateral strain. Similarly, this deformation del L, this is the deformation along the load direction, so it is called a axial deformation or longitudinal deformation. This del L divided by that length along the x direction will be equal to axial strain. The ratio between the lateral strain to axial strain is called Poisson's ratio. So this is called a Poisson's effect. Whenever we solve the problem in 3D, we have to consider this Poisson effect. Here, when you write the strain along the x direction, including the Poisson effect, you will get sigma x by E. If you consider only one dimension, you will get only this one, sigma x by E. When you consider the 2 dimension, we will get this part. When you consider the 3 dimension, we will get this one. Minus nu. Here nu is the Poisson ratio. Sigma y by E minus nu sigma z by E. Now epsilon y. Similarly, when you write it, the sigma y by E, right? This is the strain along the y direction. Then these are the lateral strain produced by the load acting on the other 2 direction. So that is also subtracted here to find the net strain along the x direction, y direction like this. Epsilon z will become like this. This is the linear strain. Then these are the lateral strain which are subtracted from here. So if you find the strain along the x direction, y direction and z direction for a 3-dimensional stress element, we have to consider the Poisson effect also. Now, what we require is we want to know the expression for sigma x, sigma y and sigma z. These are called normal stresses. We have 3 equations for solving these 3 sigma x, sigma y, sigma z stress element. If you take this E which is common, then multiply with this epsilon, then we can rearrange this equation. By rearranging all these things, you will get the expression for sigma x, sigma y, sigma z in terms of epsilon x, epsilon y, epsilon z and Young's modulus nu. This you can refer any strength of material textbook. Directly I will give you that relationship. Sigma x, sigma y, sigma, this is the normal stress and this is the normal strain. Epsilon x, epsilon y, epsilon z. Now this relationship we are obtaining here. This is the matrix called stress strain relationship matrix or constitutive matrix, we are going to say finally. How we are getting this matrix? By solving these 3 equations, right? That we can refer any strength of material textbook. Similarly, we can go for the shear strain. For shear strain, by definition, we can say gamma xy is equal to tau xy divided by g, where g is the modulus of rigidity. So for shear strain, it is very simple definition. Shear strain yz, so tau yz divided by g. Shear strain zx, tau zx divided by g. Now if you take this one, tau xy is equal to g multiplied with the gamma xy. Gamma xy is the strain, shear strain. We know the relationship between g and e, that is shear modulus and Young's modulus. So g will be equal to e divided by 2 1 plus mu. So you have to remember the relationship, e will be greater always than the g. In that way you can remember this expression. G is equal to e divided by 2 1 plus nu. Now to add this 3 shear stress also in this equation, we are going to take this common constant, right? So here we are getting 1 plus nu alone. So what we are going to do is we are going to multiply and divide by 1 minus 2 nu. So multiply and divide by 1 minus 2 nu. So you will get the same constant E divided by 1 plus nu, 1 minus 2 nu. In addition, we will get 1 minus 2 nu by 2. So similarly, we can do it for the tau yz and the tau zx also. So finally, we will get the relationship like this. These are the shear stress component, and this is the shear strain. This matrix relates the shear stress and the shear strain. To combine the normal stress and the shear stress, we are getting this common constant outside the matrix. So when you combine this normal stress and the shear stress component, we will get the stress strain relationship matrix in 3 dimension. So this is the 3 normal stress, 3 shear stress component in 3D, and now we are combining because both the matrix have same constant outside the matrix. So E divided by 1 plus nu, 1 minus 2 nu, and here first three rows for normal stress, 1 minus nu, nu into epsilon x, epsilon y, epsilon z. So this is what we arrived from this equation. Then next 3 rows are for the shear stress. So these 3 rows for shear stress, 1 minus 2 nu by 2, 1 minus 2 nu by 2 we are getting. This is the shear strain. Sigma, the stress matrix, is equal to D matrix into epsilon matrix. So where D matrix is called a constitutive matrix or elasticity matrix or stress strain relationship matrix. If you want to solve any problem in real time application which is subjected to combination of loading, then we have to find all these 3 normal stress and 3 shear stress. Using that we can find the principal stress to design that particular component. But in most of the engineering applications, we try to simplify this 3-dimensional problem into either 2D or 1D. So in case of 2D, by using the geometry, material property, boundary condition and loading, right, the nature of loading, all these things, by based on that we can get some condition or model which will be useful for converting a 3-dimensional problem into a 2D. We are going to discuss those conditions in this part. There are 3 conditions used to convert a 3-dimensional problem into 2D problem. Actually, these problems are called plane elasticity problem. In case of elastic material, right, if a machine component is made of elastic material, then we will say that the material will obey the Hooke's law. It is called a linear elastic material. In that case, depends upon the load, geometry, material property and boundary condition, we can say the stress developed in that particular component is independent of any one of the direction. So that means once you know that the stress developed inside this material or component is independent of that particular direction, then we can neglect that direction for doing the analysis. Once you neglect that direction, one direction, then the 3-dimensional problem will become a 2-dimensional problem. So this is the plane elasticity concept. Based on this, we have 3 different conditions. One is plane stress condition, then plane strain condition and the axis symmetric condition. We will quickly go through these 3 conditions. How to convert a 3-dimensional problem into a 2-dimensional one by using these 3 conditions. So I will explain. For each condition, we are going to define that stress strain relationship matrix, that is constitutive matrix also. First, we will take up the plane stress condition. In some applications, the machine component may have very small thickness. It is called a thin body. In most of the engineering applications, we will come across this type of components where the thickness of the member is very small. The sheet metal component and washer. Here I am showing washer and some structural bracket with a small thickness. And one more condition, the load should act along the plane. That is called in plane loading condition. Here I am showing one structural bracket which is fixed at this end. We are considering the load is acting in this direction. That means if you consider this sectional plane, the load is also acting along this section plane. Similarly, when you take the example of washer, which is used in bolt and nut joints, so the washer will have small thickness, and if you see the load acting on the washer, it will be along the section plane. So if this section plane is taken as XY plane and the thickness direction is considered as Z direction, in this type of condition, we can say that the stress in the thickness direction, that is Z direction, is negligible. We have stress along the XY plane is more than this stress acting on the Z direction. So because the thickness is very small, so there will not be any scope for stress acting along the thickness direction. So that is why the sigma Z is considered as 0. This is the plane stress condition. So we can apply this plane stress condition in many places wherever we find the sheet metal components, right? So mostly the automobile and the aircraft body structures. So we can apply the plane stress condition. So if the thickness is small and we are assuming that the forces are acting along the plane, that is a XY plane. So in that case we can neglect the sigma Z. What is the advantage of this one? When you write sigma Z equal to 0, similarly we are neglecting the shear stress tau Zx 0 and also tau Yz is also 0. So in this case, when you see in the previously we explained how the stress strain relationship is derived. So this is the normal strain equation, this is shear strain equation. The normal strain, we are neglecting the sigma Z terms and epsilon Z also neglected. Here the tau Yz and the tau Zx both are neglected. So we will have only epsilon x, epsilon y and tau xy. Again we have to do the derivation. Finally we end up with the stress strain relationship matrix or constitutive matrix like this. For a plane stress condition, we can evaluate the three stresses sigma xx, sigma yy and tau xy. That means normal stress along x direction, normal stress along y direction and shear stress. So here we are going to find the normal stress along the x direction, normal stress along the y direction, and we are considering only xy plane. So along this xy plane we can consider the shear stress. So this is the constitutive matrix for plane stress condition. Here you see the change D matrix is equal to E by 1 minus nu square, and here you have 1 nu 0 nu 1 0 0 0 1 minus nu by 2. So this matrix you have to remember to solve the problem. Next condition is plane strain condition. So in some engineering application, the thickness of the member will be very large. That means it's a very long body, and a load is also acting along the thickness direction, that is Z direction. This type of loading is called transverse loading or out of plane loading. So here I am showing the example for this dam wall, masonry dam wall. Length of the dam wall may be in kilometers. So the water force will act in this direction. So let us consider this. This is the Z axis. Now the force is acting in this one, Z direction. This cross sectional plane is taken as XY plane. This one example. Similarly, if you have any cylinder it's subjected to internal or external pressure. So in that case, if both ends are not closed, that is both ends open, so in that case also we can assume that plane strain condition. The cross section, when you take the cross section of the pipe, so your XY plane is considered as the cross sectional plane and z direction is the length of the pipe. Now in this condition, since the z direction is very large, that is large thickness component, then we can eliminate the strain along the z direction. Compared to the length of the pipe, the deformation may be negligible. In that way, they are neglecting the epsilon z, that is strain along the z direction is 0. So that means actually the strain along the z direction not equal to 0, but compared to the strain along the x and y direction, this z direction is negligible. So it is, we can say that in other words, plane elasticity concept, the strain along the xy direction is independent of the z direction. What is the condition to be satisfied? For the plane strain condition, load should act on the z direction, thickness direction, and the thickness will be very large. If these two conditions are satisfied, then we can consider this problem as a plane strain problem. So in this case, what is the stress strain relationship? Since epsilon z equal to 0, so corresponding shear strain will be 0. Gamma y is at 0, gamma z is 0. So in that three-dimensional stress strain relationship equation, we can eliminate the corresponding row for the epsilon z and gamma y z and gamma zx and corresponding column. We will get the 3 by 3 matrix for the stress strain relationship for the plane strain condition. D is equal to E divided by 1 plus nu 1 minus 2 nu 1 minus nu 0 nu 1 minus nu 0 0 0 1 minus 2 nu by 2. So here also in plane strain condition, we will get two normal stress sigma xx, sigma yy and tau xy. If you see the constitutive matrix for plane stress and the plane strain is slightly different. So you have to remember these matrices to solve the problem. For plane stress problem, this is the constitutive matrix. For plane strain problem, this is the constitutive matrix. Now the third condition called axisymmetric condition. Practical examples for axisymmetric conditions are pressure vessels, cylindrical vessels which are subjected to internal or external pressure. Here both ends will be closed. Flywheel, in case of IC engines and all, we have discussed about the flywheel. So flywheel is a axisymmetric component, and a turbine disc in which we have number of impeller blades oriented circumferentially. All these parts can be considered as a example for axisymmetric condition. In general, we can say if the component is made by revolving a plane surface for 360-degree rotation. In the engineering drawing, we have studied about solids of revolution like cylinder, cone, sphere, right? So if the components are in cylindrical or conical or spherical shape, then that type of component can be considered as axisymmetric. So not only the geometry as well as the material property and external load acting and boundary condition, all these four things we have discussed already. These are the four parameters used to describe the engineering problem. All these four parameters should be symmetrical with respect to that axis of symmetry. So here the axis of symmetry will be considered as axis of rotation for the solids of revolution. So how to reduce this three-dimensional problem into 2D, that we will see. To understand this axisymmetric condition, we are having this simple diagram. Here I am showing this cylinder which is subjected to internal pressure. Here we are using the cylindrical coordinate system. What are the cylindrical coordinates? Let us say this is the base, and we are taking this radial direction R, and this is axis. So axial direction is Z, and this is the circumferential direction which is taken as theta. Now, if you consider a plane, if you take this cross section plane, and if you find the stress acting along the plane at any angle of theta, the stress acting on the plane will be equal or common. So that means we can say that the stress acting on this longitudinal cross sectional plane is independent of the coordinate theta. By that way, we can simplify this three-dimensional problem into a 2D. That means when you solve this type of axisymmetric problem, we can model only these plane, longitudinal sectional plane, here it is going to called as RZ plane. So in this plane, let us say we are going to model only this rectangular cross section, and in finite element we will discretize this rectangular cross section by using the two-dimensional element. It may be a triangular or rectangular element. Here we are concentrating on the triangular element. So our analysis will be only in the 2D, this RZ plane. Here I am showing it is discretized by triangular element like this. Now since the theta coordinate is independent, so we will have only the RZ coordinate. So for this axisymmetric condition, we are going to have the three normal stress. Radial stress along the R, that is sigma R is the stress along the R direction. Then sigma Z is stress along the axial direction, and sigma theta. Here sigma theta is not equal to 0, it is constant. So the strain along the theta direction is constant. We are considering that stress along the theta direction also. So we will get a three normal stress. Sigma theta is called as circumferential stress or hoop stress. Then sigma RZ, we are considering the RZ plane. So we are taking the shear stress along this RZ plane. Sigma RZ or tau RZ. Shear stress in the RZ plane. Now, how to derive the stress strain relationship matrix, we will see. For this axisymmetric condition, we will have three normal stress and one shear stress in the RZ plane. So we have to follow the similar procedure what we followed for plane strain condition. From the 3D stress strain relationship, we can eliminate these two shear stress components. So we will get the remaining 4 by 4 matrix for the stress strain relationship matrix in case of axisymmetric. So this is the constitutive matrix for axisymmetric condition. E divided by 1 plus nu, 1 minus 2 nu, and here inside the matrix we have it is a square matrix. 1 minus nu, nu 0, nu 1 minus nu 0, nu 1 minus nu 0, and 0 0 1 minus 2 nu by 2. So this is the stress strain relationship in 2D. We have discussed three conditions which are called the plane elasticity condition. Based on the geometry, material property, boundary condition and load condition, we can neglect any one of the dimension or direction in the three-dimensional problem. By that way, we can reduce that three-dimensional problem into a two-dimensional one. Then for each case, plane stress case and plane strain and axisymmetric condition, the stress strain relationship matrix also derived. In the next part, first we have to derive the strain displacement relationship, then only we can relate the stress and the displacement. Okay, so in the next part we are going to derive the strain displacement relationship matrix for the two-dimensional triangular element. Then we have to solve the problems for the 2D vector variable problem. That is, in all the three conditions we are going to take up the problem one by one. Thank you for your passion listening.